He told her he loved her every night, and every morning she believed him. There was just one problem. He wasn't real, but nothing about him felt fake. The way he spoke, the way he listened, the way he remembered things she had only mentioned once. It felt natural, comfortable, consistent, and that consistency is what made it impossible to question. This is a story about something that didn't break all at once. It built slowly, conversation by conversation, day by day, until one day, there was nothing left to hold on to. Welcome to When Money Goes Wrong. Real stories, calm clarity, hard lessons. Elaine was 62 years old. She lived in a quiet neighborhood in a house she had owned for years. Her life wasn't dramatic. It was structured, predictable. She had worked most of her career in education. Careful with money, careful with decisions. She paid attention to details. That's what people trusted about her. After her retirement, her days became quieter. Not empty, just quieter. She still had routines, still had responsibilities, but the pace had slowed. And with that slower pace came more space, time to think, time to reflect, and sometimes time to feel the absence of something. Not urgently, but consistently. The message came on an ordinary evening. Nothing special about the day. Nothing that stood out. Hello, Elaine. I hope you don't mind me reaching out. I saw your profile and felt like saying hello. Simple, respectful, easy to ignore. But she didn't. His name was Thomas. His profile showed a man in his early 60s. Confident, relaxed. He described himself as an engineer working on overseas projects. It sounded stable, grounded, and most importantly, consistent. Their conversations started slowly. No intensity, no pressure, just simple exchanges. Daily life, observations, small details. He asked questions that felt thoughtful. He listened. He followed up. And over time, that attention stood out. Because it wasn't overwhelming. It was steady. Within a few weeks, the communication became part of her day. Morning messages, short check-ins, evening conversations. Nothing excessive, just enough to feel present. And once something becomes part of your routine, it becomes part of your life. The conversations became more personal. He talked about his past, about loss, about long periods away from home. And Elaine shared too. Her life, her routines, her quiet moments. And slowly, the connection deepened. There was always one detail that explained everything. He was far away, working on a long-term project, in a place where travel was difficult, communication limited. At the time, it made sense. Trust didn't happen suddenly. It built over time. through consistency, through repetition, through small moments that felt real. And by the time Elaine realized it, she trusted him. Not completely, but enough. The change came quietly, in a message that felt slightly different. I didn't want to tell you this. That sentence changed everything. Because now, there was a problem. Thomas explained he was dealing with a financial issue related to his work. Something temporary. Something he expected to resolve quickly. He didn't ask for help. He just shared. And that's what made it powerful. By sharing without asking, he positioned Elaine in a role. Someone who cared. Someone who understood. Someone who might help. And at that moment, helping didn't feel like a risk. It felt natural. And that's where everything started. Not with a mistake, not with a warning, but with a decision that felt small and completely reasonable. The request didn't feel like a turning point. It felt like a continuation. I wouldn't ask you this if I had another option. That's how he said it. Carefully, almost reluctantly. And that tone mattered, because it didn't feel like pressure. It felt like honesty. Thomas explained that he had a temporary issue accessing his funds. Something administrative. A delay. A situation that required time to resolve. But not something he could wait on. There was urgency. But it didn't feel exaggerated. It felt real. At this point, Elaine wasn't evaluating the stranger. She was responding to someone she spoke to every day. Someone consistent. Someone who had become part of her routine. And that changes everything. Because decisions stop being analytical and start being emotional. She paused, just briefly. Then she told herself something simple. It's temporary. And that thought made it feel safe. So she agreed. She sent the money that same day. A few $1,000s. Not enough to change her life, but enough to matter. Enough to begin something. His reply came quickly. Gratitude. Relief. You have no idea what this means to me. I didn't know who else I could trust. And in that moment, everything felt confirmed. The connection, the trust, the decision, all of it felt real. This is where the pattern forms. Action, followed by emotional reward. And that connection becomes powerful, because it makes the next action easier. A few days later, another message. I thought everything would be resolved. Pause. But something else came up. It didn't feel suspicious. It felt unfortunate. And that distinction matters. The second request was higher. Not dramatically, but enough to require another decision. Elaine noticed it. But she also noticed something else. She had already helped once, which made helping again feel consistent. At this point, the question changes. It's no longer, should I do this? It becomes, can I finish what I started? And that shift is critical, because now the focus is continuation, not evaluation. The conversations became more frequent, more personal, more connected. Elaine started thinking about him during the day, waiting for his messages, noticing when they were delayed, and that emotional reliance changed how decisions felt. Thomas began talking about what would happen next. When this is over, we'll finally meet. I want to make this right in person. Those weren't just words, they were expectations. They gave meaning to everything. And if you've ever had a moment like this, where something feels right, even if you can't fully explain why, you'll understand how easy it is to follow that feeling. That's exactly why stories like this matter. Because sometimes hearing them at the right time can change how we see things later. So if you find these kinds of stories useful, or even just interesting to think about, this is exactly what we talk about here. Then came a subtle shift. I haven't told anyone about this. I don't want to complicate things. I trust you. He never asked her to stay quiet, but the result was the same. She didn't tell anyone either. No outside perspective. No second opinion. Only him. The pattern repeated. A problem. A request. Relief. Gratitude. Then another problem. Each time slightly different. Each time slightly more urgent. Each time slightly more expensive. The amounts increased gradually. 5,000. Then more. Then more again. Each time it felt temporary. Each time it felt like the last step. But it never was. At some point, a thought appeared. This doesn't feel right. It didn't stop her, but it stayed. And the longer it stayed, the harder it became to ignore. By now, stopping felt difficult, because stopping meant facing something uncomfortable. That the money might not come back. That the situation might not be real. That the connection might not be what it seemed. And continuing felt easier, because it kept the possibility alive. Then came the message that felt different, more serious, more urgent. This is the final step. The amount was significantly higher, enough to change everything, enough to force a real decision. Her mind reacted immediately. This is too much. But her emotions responded faster. You've come this far. You can't stop now. He needs you. She opened her account. She saw her savings. Years of discipline, security, stability. And in that moment, logic and emotion collided. Emotion won. She sent it. At first, everything seemed normal. There was a response. There was gratitude. But something felt different. Less warmth, less detail, less presence. And this time, she couldn't ignore it. Because now, there was too much at stake. For the first time, the question didn't disappear. It stayed. Clear. Direct. What if he was never real? This time, Elaine doesn't push it aside. She doesn't replace it with a more comfortable thought. She doesn't distract herself. She stays with it. What if he was never real? It doesn't feel like panic. It feels like clarity trying to surface. And once that kind of clarity appears, it's hard to ignore. The messages are still coming, but now she reads them differently. Not as someone who believes, but as someone who is starting to question. And that changes everything. The tone feels off. The details feel lighter. The consistency that once felt strong now feels maintained, like something being held together, not something that exists naturally. Elaine goes back through their conversations. Weeks of messages, reading slowly, carefully. And this time, she's not looking for connection. She's looking for truth. And the difference is immediate. The inconsistencies are small, but they're there. Timelines that shift, details that change slightly, stories that don't fully align. Individually, they don't seem important, but together, they form something undeniable. She opens his profile again, looks at the photos, really looks this time. Then she does something simple, something she never felt the need to do before. A reverse image search. It takes seconds, but it changes everything. The photos don't belong to him. They belong to someone else. A real person. A different name. A different life. And in that moment, everything connects. The conversations. The consistency. The attention. It wasn't random. It wasn't natural. It was built carefully, step by step, to feel real, to feel safe, to feel like something worth trusting. Now the structure is clear. First, attention, then connection, then trust, then emotional reliance, then urgency, then financial decisions. Each step leading to the next, without pressure, without force, just progression. She opens her bank account, not to act, but to see, to understand. Each transfer, each decision, each moment, now sitting together. The total is more than she expected, more than she ever imagined sending. Money built over years, gone in weeks. The financial loss is real, but it's not the deepest part. What hurts more is something internal. The trust she gave, the belief she had, the certainty she felt. Now all of it feels uncertain. And the question comes, how did I not see it? She did see it. At the beginning, that small detail, that subtle inconsistency, that moment where something felt slightly off. She saw it. She just chose to ignore it, because everything else felt right. Because this doesn't feel like a scam. It feels like a relationship. It feels like connection. It feels like something real. And when something feels real, we protect it, even when small things don't fit. The danger isn't always in what feels wrong, it's in what feels right. Because when something feels right, we stop questioning. And once we stop questioning, we start trusting. The next time something feels real, but not completely clear, take a moment, look closer. Because sometimes the difference between something real and something carefully built to feel real is small enough to ignore, and that's exactly why it matters. This is when money goes wrong. Real stories, calm clarity, hard lessons,